Hi, guys. How do I do this? What am I doing? I'm trying to get Molly. Molly, where are you? Molly, where are you? I don't know. Here we go. Here we go. Hello. Hello. Pardon me while I quickly get confused. How is everyone today? We good? You know what I may need to do is something. Hold that thought. Hold that thought. Something. Hold that thought. Hold that thought. Hello. Welcome. Hello. I've missed you guys, you beautiful, wonderful community. Lenny, you've missed nothing because I'm still sorting out the technical business, the technical end of this, and am eternally late. So, you know how that goes. So today, this is our first, I think it truly is our first shared live experience. You're going to look at the ceiling for a second. Oh, I think I got it. Okay, here we go. Here we go. I think I got it. Oh my God, I think it's happening. I think it's happening.
Is it working?
Oh my God. But I can't see you.
Something right.
I think you have to hit a camera.
Live live access needed to go live on video as a guest.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
All right, well, I'm going to move this chair.
Lenny, Haley, yay! Okay.
We're doing it. We're
I
doing
might
it.
need to Google something to figure out how to do this.
I think it's just, oh my God, somebody sent something.
Let me see if I can figure this out.
All right. If you want to
right
go
back.
and come back, that's
I'm going to go and come back.
Okay, go and come back. Meanwhile, I'm still sorting out where to sit. How's everybody doing? I feel like I haven't been here in a while. That feels very real. Me, I'm good. Can't complain. I mean, I could, but... I really appreciate being roasted by you this morning, sir. Thank you. Yeah. My spring break was lovely. Did anybody else have a spring break? I do like being roasted. I imagine that if I have a love language, even though I don't like that framework, being, roasted is part of it. I never understand technology. I'm not going to begin to. Oh, thank you very much. I've got a real outfit on. Much of it is inspired by Molly Strong, and comes from Molly Strong, I think. But we'll do a fit check. Yeah. So today, this is to be quite. Yeah, exactly. You'd be surprised, Lenny. Only once. Only once. What really is selling today, though, is the shoes. And why wear boots? Why not? Even though... Oh, they're back. Hold on. Hold on. Well, so Molly and I,
Here's my update. I can't go live with a video because I have less than 1,000 followers.
stop it.
So we can do it with the voice.
All right, that's fine. That's fine.
Not ideal, but we're gonna roll with it.
So I can't look at you though. That makes me so sad. Uh, just that's really a messaging for power in the healing process. You're not allowed to be seen.
No.
That's
I'm heard and not seen, which is the opposite of, the postmodern woman,
I don't think folks know. I was going to first ask you, Molly. So, for those of you who do not know, Molly Strong, the Molly Strong, is a coach. And I'm not going to describe them because they're here and can speak for themselves. But if you could just say a little bit about you and who you are, and then I don't know if you want to say how we know each other. But yeah.
Totally. Hi, TikTok universe. I'm Molly Strong. I have the pleasure of knowing this fine human, Abby Gunn, for 15 years, maybe close to 20. My pronouns are she, her. I'm happy to respond to any pronouns you'd like to give me, though. Those are my preferred, though. I come from a wild background of many different types of coaching, some corporate, some very deep personal. I'm trained in somatic work. I love messy human experiences that are deeply authentic, and I find them to be the most healing when they're very messy and very human. And I like learning about how to hold more of that messy humanness in all of my practices. I work mostly with women. A few men find their way to me every now and then, but usually I work with women, and a lot of my work with them is around finding all the places where their life force is locked up inside of a pattern or a block or a wound or a trauma. Sometimes maybe it's just in a story. But finding all the places where there's like kinks in the hose of her life force and using lots of different tools to open up those little portals and unkink the hose so that any woman who works with me can have access to more energy and more life force to create more of the life that she wants. That's a little bit about me.
Big fuck yeah. That's a big. One thing, so Molly and I, to be clear, we went to the same high school. I think that's important to say so that you get a sense of the knownness. But I don't think when we were in New York, was I actually a therapist yet? No.
You were still in school when we first moved to New York.
Right. And then I don't even know if I was therapist. No, we were not friends in high school. I sort of knew of Molly. Were we friends? We weren't really friends. We were not friends.
That's true. We fell in love after high school. I was in grad school and we encountered each other at a bar in our hometown on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and that was when our very deep love affair began.
Indeed. Thank you. Lenny's texting me where my tripod is. Thank you, Lenny. Thank you, Lenny. So I will fix that. So yes, and so, but our friendship, one of the things that I sort of, again, we look at healing very similarly. We have understood a lot of things very similarly, but we also have very different lenses for this. And when we were talking about doing this live and sort of opening up, the idea of like hanging out with folks and talking through what the healing process is, I think it's really, Molly was the first person I thought of, but it also was sort of like, well, this is really important because healing takes so many forms, and particularly when we're talking about childhood sexual trauma or we're talking about trauma in general, the thought is that you have to go and do talk therapy, and studies don't say that to be true. But I thought really getting to hear a voice of somebody who really does help and heal people and open up questions, sort of like to see that there's many different ways to approach the reality of being a human being in a body full of experience. Right?
Completely.
Did I do that, Mal?
I think you really did. And, I think in our lifetime, talk therapy will continue to be a really easy kind of gateway to healing. It's like yes, move it around, Gun.
Sorry, I'm just trying to. I'm
not a therapist, Becca. I'm a coach, so I come with different lenses and no license to practice therapy. I think in our lifetime, talk therapy is a nice way in, I think, for a lot of people who are just starting to talk about their feelings, learn about their feelings. Like, it's a good kind of gateway drug to the healing process, and in my opinion can be a place where you get stuck. Maybe you feel like you're not having a great experience in that. And so I'm a big fan of multimodalities. I'm a big fan of having lots of different tools and experiences and approaching the healing from lots of different aspects: the body, the mind, the spirit, the heart, whatever.
And I think, to back that up, one of the things about coaching that's a little bit different than therapy, obviously there's a bunch of different kinds of therapy. I was going to say Molly is not a therapist, but she has been my therapist for many years. But the reality is that, especially for for the community, my community, right, childhood sexual abuse survivors, talk therapy helps us dissociate, right? It helps us stay out of the body. It facilitates sometimes intellectualizing our trauma and trying to make sense of it.
As a fellow dissociator, that tracks with my experience as well. I also have been someone, and I think you too, Abs, who has really leaned on my super hot intellect to make sense of the world. And it's an amazing tool, right? And it's this practice of learning how to balance the mentality and the intelligence with like the intelligence of the body and the emotional body. Like, learning how to listen to these other languages for me helps the process so much. I'm like, oh, my brain doesn't have to do it all.
Yeah. I really had a big ego death with that one though, Mal. I was like, what do you mean my brain can't do it all? What do you mean I can't think my way out of this?
It's a real pisser, man. It's unfortunate. And for me, in my experience, as I make the choice over and over again to re-enter my body after moments of dissociation, I find so much beauty in it, even though it's still such a new language for me. Like, when I think of it in these words of like, oh, I'm learning to speak the language of my body, I'm learning to speak the language of my emotions, I feel like I have a little more room for myself in the curiosity of it.
I think hamster man, pisser is something my mother used to say. But Molly, I think you've always said pisser too.
Totally. Totally.
Again, so I don't know what I'm doing over here. I clearly am having some kind of feeling because I can't sit still.
We've got some cool
I'm so
questions.
excited.
It's so
Um,
nice. We've got some cool questions around like getting back in the body and learning how to get back in the body. I've got a riff on it. You want to?
riff away.
So, one of the things about getting back in your body is it can be as simple as just knowing where your borders are. So, like putting your hands on your body and just repeating to yourself, I'm right here. I'm right here. Like knowing where you end and the rest of the world begins is a very gentle, approachable way, especially when dissociation is the safest place and your body is the least safe place. Like gentleness and slowness is so the key. But just really putting your hands on your body and being like, oh, that's where my legs end. Oh, that's where my hands are. And I don't think that can be done, quote unquote, too soon or too late. It can be done whenever you think of it.
I love the language of I'm right here, or I am here, or I am real, right?
Yeah.
This is real. I think sometimes we love, there's a somatic exercise that talks about sort of this is my body and it belongs to me, which is again a very beautiful sentiment, a real sentiment. And it can it can feel like you're gaslighting yourself if you're really dissociated. You're like, I'm not even here. How is this body? It's not, but I love I am here. Like this is where I am.
Yeah.
You have a tattoo that says I am here.
It says you are here, like on a map. Like on a map.
Even better.
You are here.
I
I also like this thing that you said, Abby, like it seems like such a basic thing, but we really do need confirmation that we are real and that our experience is real. And especially, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong from a therapeutic standpoint, I think with victims of childhood sexual abuse, I know also for myself, I know also for all types of archetypes of people, if they didn't have parents who knew how to confirm their realness as a young child,
yeah.
it's a difficult thing, and learning how to confirm your reality to yourself is potentially the work of a lifetime. But it also does make big leaps. Like when you land in some plateaus of that, you can really be like, oh yes, I'm real, my experience is real, and it's right and good.
100%. And Lilith, the answer is yes. Like any kind of I think a lot of the language we use around abuse is about violation, but violation at its core is sort of about violating somebody else's reality. It's sort of saying that my reality overrides yours. And Molly, to your point, like the idea that, in the animal world, there are conflicting realities all the time, right? Predator and prey.
Yeah.
The reality of the prey is I would like to live. I'm afraid. I don't want to die. I would like to get away. And the reality of the predator is I would like to live. I'm hungry and I need to eat you. And I think so much of the debate that all people get into is about what reality is real. And they both are. And so being able to sort of be like, I can have my reality can be different than yours, and you don't have to agree, right? Doesn't change that I am real and you're real.
I mean, I think if there were one capacity that would actually fundamentally change the world, it would be humans having the capacity to hold more than one truth at once and hold them in equality.
Yeah.
Like my direct experience is irrefutable.
Yeah.
So is yours. I can't tell you your direct experience is wrong. It's an irrefutable truth. I might have thoughts, opinions, or impact on what your direct experience is and how you communicate it to me. And I may not want that to be your direct experience, but the fact is that it is.
Right.
And so just working with this, my truth plus your truth equals a higher truth over and over and over again, without getting too spiritual woo woo about it, but a little bit of like, this is, it's real that these truths can really compound each other when they're allowed to coexist.
Absolutely. And I want to say, Lilith, thank you for sharing your time with us. We are honored, and we are with you.
Yes.
One of the things so if things resonate that we say in our community, one of the ways that we sort of show one another that something resonated, we're not alone, is that we put up a ladybug. So if it's a cool thing. Yeah. I don't even know. It's better than putting up the laxative emoji, which I created, Molly, in a whatever, that's a whole different subject, but we put up a ladybug. And so part of this is kind of, sitting with like one of the questions that I always find with survivors, what I find with people who've experienced trauma of any kind is a lot of what they want to know. Thank you, Becca. There it is. Molly, I made that thinking it was an inspirational thing. It's
you win some, Gunny.
That's, I just whatever I did there. But is that they're always like, I don't need I don't want people to validate always my experience by being like, that's so hard. Sometimes I do, right? Like but I want somebody to tell me what to do.
Sure. I got a question for you. If someone repeats back to you what they heard, like if you told me your experience and I repeated back to you, like word for word what you said to me, and I said, I hear that your experience is this and this and this. I don't interpret at all. I just give you the pure reflection of the words coming out of your mouth. How would it feel to you?
I think I might feel patronized.
Depending,
this is where if I've gotten to my real New York self, I'd be like, who it was, I'd be like, well, I just said that. Yeah, I said that. That's what I said.
Yeah.
If I was being a total, but again, I think if it was framed from a place of being like, I really want to get this right. Like, yes. I really care that I'm understanding you. So yes.
Let me make sure I'm getting your world. Did I miss anything?
But I think it's funny because I think that is like, with so like the Montessori education for kids, and a lot of research around child development talks about like how important it is to narrate a child's experience. Like you don't do, you basically like, you fell over. That is a trash can. You pooped. You did this, right? Like, and this is such a big deal. And I think, again, to your point, like that would feel really good, but my brain says that it wouldn't because it's a bit novel to me.
Yeah. And I like the ad you're giving me of like, if it was presented as an act of curiosity, it might feel more interesting of like, I want to make sure I'm getting your world. I want to make sure I'm receiving you with accuracy so that I can be of whatever support I can be. Like, did I get it right? Like, did I track everything correctly? Does that sound like what's happening for you? And you're just like, yes, check, check, check. And then maybe we can get into like, okay, so what do you want? You're like, I want you to tell me what to do. And we're like, okay, well, let's talk options. Let's make a list. What are all the things that we could do?
I think that's, I think it's because I think a big part of being real to somebody is them also being real, right? Yeah. Like to feel real, if you're telling somebody something, then they have to be like a real person giving you a response. And so I think that space, right? It's like the difference between patronizing in my body and connection is the person I'm talking to, you being like, I want to do this because this is what I want.
Yeah. And a congruence, right? Like that they're moved by what you're saying. It's not just like a robotic repeating back, because that's annoying and shitty and nobody likes that.
Nobody likes it. But yeah, like, to be real, let me ask you a question. When do you feel the most real?
If I am in the middle of a big response and I'm crying and I'm scared, if someone just goes, uh-huh, to me and says yes while I'm crying and scared, I feel very real.
Yeah.
Like when I get the like, uh-huh, yes, this, it's such a gentle confirmation of like, yes, your feelings are welcome. Yes, they're real. They're probably happening for a good reason. And it's a subtle but very profound yes to my realness that doesn't try to come over the top of it, doesn't try to soothe it, doesn't try to make it stop, but it just is like, yeah.
Oh, I'm into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly. It doesn't like it all. It's rooted in separateness. It's not somebody trying to be like, oh no, what's wrong? It's being like, yeah,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be crying if something was right.
Yeah. I want to answer Hannah's question. She's asking, is it okay to not want to connect with the body? I hate it so much. Is healing possible without it? Baby, it's totally okay to not want to. For sure. It's okay to hate it. It's okay for it to be like the last thing you ever want to do. And it holds so many keys. And I think a degree of healing is possible without it. And I think slow, tiny baby sips of being in the body is like, if you're curious and you're feeling like there's a missing piece in your experience, that it might be a really beautiful place to look, even though it's so hateable sometimes. I really get it.
And if I may add, I'm going to be a real pain in the ass because that's,
Please.
Because I'm known for that. You can't not be in your body because you're alive. So
hey, that's a great point. Yeah.
There's like, you can be like, I don't want to be here. I leave, I dissociate, I do all these things. That's great. Like Molly said, to come back in, you have control and power over how you can, right, sort of do the best. Like, but like, sorry, you and your body are the same thing. Like, you are your body. There's no.
I hear you, Hannah.
Yeah, exactly. God damn it. I know it's a real pisser. It is a real pisser. But it is, the thing that I sort of sit with, Mom, like, this is when I had my, whatever I want to call it, my awakening, when I woke up, when I came out of dissociation, when I stopped trying to control reality, or basically gave up on the fact that I could, was not healing, like the body. I don't heal my body. My body heals. Like if I, have a cut, I can do things with my brain. I can make decisions to be like, I should put Neosporin on that. Or, with my, which, guys, it looks amazing now. See?
It does look amazing. Woo!
But like the body, the life force is actually the thing that heals. And a lot of healing, whether it comes to, and that's a great question, Lori, and we can talk about that. Like part of staying in the body is, what does that mean? It means to be in the present.
Yeah.
Like that's it. If you, when I would have a trigger and like have a big release or a big panic attack or whatever the fuck you want to call it, one of the big things that I had to do instead of thinking was to just think over and over and over to myself, stay here, stay here, stay here. And that mantra, that's like about like, am I in the body? I mean, I'm here. I am my body. Just right, but stay here. Um,
And Lori, I think like, you plan for a rainy day when it's sunny. When you're not in a trigger, feel the borders of your body. Like do it in the morning before you brush your teeth kind of a thing. And like just be like, okay, like I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. Then it's going to be more easy for you to reach for that tool when you're in a blackout.
totally.
Trigger.
And pleasurable things. Like I think there are certain things, especially for survivors of childhood sexual abuse, right? There are things that, I mean, again, this is like everybody, but there's things that are more difficult to be in your body for than others, right? Whether it's, having your period, or it's brushing your teeth, or it's when you're sick, or, so I think sometimes facilitating, like this is good. Paul, you're going to be like, "Oh, do you really this?" I love, one of my favorite things I found that I love to do is to play soccer and run around.
Oh my God, you're so cute.
I'm a 40-year-old woman, just
Having the time of her life playing soccer and doing what she wants. This is great.
I'm gonna join a league.
Yes, you are.
This is my divorced mom glow up, is I join a soccer league and take up horseback riding. And what else? Go to Panama. But, it's like practicing being in your body then,
Yeah.
right? When it's fun, when it's pleasurable. Yeah, see, exactly. Letty's a lot of fun.
I got one more on this, like.
Hit me.
For those of us who learned for very, very, very good reasons when we were young that dissociating was the only way to stay safe, the wires got crossed on this for us. So we now live in a universe where the body is not the safe place. It is the unsafe place. This is not the actual fundamental truth. It's a crossed wire.
Yeah.
So the only place that you're actually safe is in your body.
Beautifully put.
And this is so challenging for dissociators. I'm raising my hand and like pointing at myself right now. Dissociators Anonymous, what? To believe, because we have lived experience of the non-safety that quote unquote existed in our body. It was a young lens that made sense of things like this. And as we move around in the healing process and we have more adult consciousness online, we get to really play with with rewriting and uncrossing the wires and being like, actually the only safe place is in my body. That's like the truth. And how can I gently walk myself into that?
I think that is, and it's such a, like, that experience of the body being unsafe, is something that, again, for a lot of the folks that are here, right? Yeah. We're identifying the body as being what's unsafe, but it was other people. Like it was other people's bodies.
Correct.
It wasn't your body. No. My body was fine.
It was the experience that occurred that created unsafety, and our young, beautiful, innocent minds were like, it must mean that my body's unsafe and I'm gonna full eject. It's wise. It's just, it's a specific young lens.
Totally. And it has everything to do with attachment, because in order for a child, that's the only power you have, is to take, right, to protect your attachments. To the only power you have in a situation like that is to be like, this is all my fault.
Yes.
This is absolutely.
I'm going to take all the responsibility, and that's how I will control it and ensure that I still have the safety at the end of this experience.
Right. And I'm still a person. I'm still intact. It is all my fault, right? I am a self. This self screwed it all up. And it's like, right, from that place, it's about maintaining a self, and it's really, really healthy instinct. But then when we get into adulthood and we look around and we're like, oh shit, okay, so I actually am in charge now. Right? I actually am in charge of my safety. to the degree that a human being can be, right? Like,
Correct.
do not control the weather. I do not control other people. I do not, but like I get to lock my door. I get to do this. I get to do that. And I think part of it is, if you've really had this very, dissociators unite, we have a binary experience of being in the body and out of the body.
Yes.
So, we're either fully in charge or completely powerless. And
Yeah.
that is where to me, my wires get so messed up, right? Where I'm like, I must protect everybody from all harm. And then,
It's a precious instinct. Precious.
but it's not great if it looks like being like, be careful, look out, do that, don't do that, right? Like that's not pleasant. That's not pleasant, right? So part of it is being like, how do I trust other people's, the separateness of other people's bodies? I'm like, trust your body. I'll work on trusting mine. Right? It doesn't have to be catastrophic either. If your understanding of harm in childhood was like life or death, you move in the world with that being the understanding.
Totally.
Most things aren't life or death.
They aren't. And in a young system, when our survival mechanisms are kicked up, and in an adult system, when our survival mechanisms kicked up, our system goes straight to like, I'm going to get kicked out of the tribe and be alone and get eaten by a tiger in the middle of the night. It goes to life or death pretty fast.
Word.
And just to know that that's what's happening and be like, okay. Like we hitting survival buttons now. Like, I'm just ordering a cup of coffee and somehow I'm in a survival trigger. Like, wow. Okay. Hello.
That's it. So, Ma, what do you think? This question of I want to know how to know if I'm dissociating or not dissociating. Do you want to talk about how you can tell?
Yeah.
There's baby cat.
Hey, baby cat. Aw.
I thought baby cat was very ill. And then I was reminded by someone who has owned a cat, because I have not owned a cat in a meaningful way since 2007, that, that's you, Lenny, that baby cat probably, like cats and dogs have different stress responses to change.
Very, very, very different.
And baby cat was likely very stressed. So, sorry, just...
How do I know if I'm not dissociated? Wow, I can feel my feet on the floor and I can feel my hands. Honestly, the biggest sensory trigger I have for when I am on the verge of dissociating is that my hands go numb. And I made a practice in a body of work I study. One of the things that we do is we practice talking about the experience that's happening in our body. So we're looking at another person and we're like, oh, my hands are sweating. My heart is racing. I feel the back of my body warmer than the front of my body. Like this practice of describing the experience of being in the body gave me these signals of like, oh, and then I'll find my way into a trigger and I'm like, I can't feel my hands right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if I check, I can't feel my feet on the floor either. And then I'm like, okay, I know I'm out of range right now. So I need to like put my hands on my body. I need to breathe. I need to use a lot of my tools to be like, I got to slow everything down. Everything's going way too fast.
Way too fast. The way too fast thing, it's, I think in some ways, yes, you can live in functional freeze.
I did it for years. I still do it.
Every once in a while I go, my goodness, was I here at all?
Yeah. I'm like, oh, how long was I in that one? Interesting.
So I think, stopping, breathing, all these things. So one of the ways though, like I think, and what I say to folks because I think a lot of people like to conceptualize the human body as like, there's like a healthy body and an unhealthy body, or you're right. Yeah. Like these very binary ways. And if you look at how the body works, right, it's meant to move in cycles. Like if anybody has small children and you have them in a school, you know that like we immune systems are being strengthened by getting sick and well and sick and well. So dissociation has, typically sort of a cyclical sense to it. And what kind of triggers it? Obviously, it comes from fear, but like, and it's, you can come in and out of it, right? Sort of when Lenny talks about like chronic, right? I just hamster man these. Yes.
Hamster man,
if you attended your life, have I been here? I mean, that's part of like what this space is about. Power in the healing process. It is, from my perspective, Mal, and I bet, we might agree on this, is quite literally about being able to live. Power is being able to live your singular life.
Yeah, even to the extent of like, I'm going to be alive in my dissociation.
It's mine.
Like it's mine. Like I'll still live in it. Like it's a part of my experience. It's a superpower that I have. It has served me so well these many years. Perhaps I'm curious about creating a different experience for myself, learning other tools and spending less time there, or having more choice about the time I'm spending there. That's the power for me.
That's the power.
But like getting mad at ourselves for dissociating or making it wrong or whatever, or overly identifying with it is like, those are varying levels of effectiveness for me.
Exactly. And I think you said something really beautiful where we were talking about different, like this concept of victim consciousness. And these might be triggering words for folks here, right? And that's okay. Like if something triggers you, if this is upsetting, if it doesn't resonate, like no one is saying what your experience is ever.
Agreed.
Right? So
it's really good to say.
It's really important to say that, like, Molly and I may know some shit, but in no way are we assuming that we know anything about anybody here or anybody's human experience. But one of, the idea of sort of like, and part of my pushback against the mental health system is that diagnoses can provide power by helping people feel real, by identifying, right, the reality of their lived experience. But they can also be identifiers. And when we identify as a depressed person or an anxious person or a traumatized person or a dissociated person, then I'm not, in my experience, I don't get to be me. I'm filling in what I am based upon something that isn't me. It's happening to me.
Yep.
It's very real. It's true, but it's not who I am. I am Abby.
This is why I personally really love working with the frame of parts work. Because then I get to say a part of me really likes dissociating and it's not my entire identity. A part of me is freaking out right now. A part of me is very happy and joyful. A part of me is scared and like crumpled in a corner right now. And all of those parts can be coexisting while I'm talking to you on TikTok. Like, and once I can step out of my experience being my identity, I feel a lot more at rest. I have more options. I feel a lot more empowered where I'm like, oh, a part of me is feeling that way. And then I'm like, what does she need? I wonder what's going on over here. I get curious.
No, it's Becca asked this great question that I would love your take, your answer to, Mom, but what makes us who we are? If I were to say, and I think this, I'm going to use your language, but it's the life force in this form.
Yeah.
Like I am Abby and who I am is Abby. And it is the life force in this meat sack.
Yeah, this particular meat sack.
This particular meat sack that has had these particular experiences. But like I'm not, I don't have like an identity of what is Abby. I don't know. Abby's a lot of things.
Well,
and
and
has been. Like now Abby's a mother. Well, 20 years ago, I was not.
you were not. It's true.
Thank God. Thank God for all of us.
Yeah.
Well, I just remember, do you remember when I decided that I was going to not eat meat so that I could try to
Oh yes.
more
Oh yes, I
deeply
remember.
connect with animals? And Molly had this amazing bulldog. She had this, is this all right if I share this?
Sure.
Okay, so both Molly and I had these soul dogs, these dogs that we got in our 20s that changed the game about what love was and taught us amazing experiences. And I'm going to get there, Lenny. And we lived about 4 blocks from each other on the Upper West Side for like 3 years in Manhattan. Amazing. And we'd take our drive anyway. But there was a season, right? Like, again, this is not where I'm at now. But at the time, if you're like, well, what is Abby doing? What is Abby interested in? I decided I was not going to eat meat because I'd heard that that would help me more deeply connect with animals. And, I wanted to be able to connect, talk to the animals. Not,
That's psychic.
yeah, I wasn't, I mean,
And she
again,
was
this
pretty
wasn't like
good at it, actually.
I did. So there was, I had this, there's a lot of stuff around childhood trauma and extrasensory perception. And at the time, I still hadn't put these two things together, but I was like, I do seem to be able to feel things from animals and, connection with them. So I was not going to eat meat because, I thought that would feel like a betrayal. And Molly's bulldog,
This is a great rabbit hole.
I can't even say it. He had something going on.
Kind of sickness, and Abby listened to him and healed him.
I didn't heal him. I got it wrong. He had something like an impacted anal gland. It's something like it ended up being like an impacted anal gland, and I was like, it's his knee. He had something.
Oh my goodness.
So again, nobody said don't take it too seriously. But
this question of what makes us who we are, I could give you the very esoteric answer of like, you are a frequency emitting through your direct experiences and transmitting that to the world. That's who you are. Another maybe more approachable answer to that is, I would ask you, like, when are the moments that you're the most proud of yourself? And when are the moments that you smile to yourself about who you were and what you just experienced, and you just have like a moment of joy?
Oh my God. Can we share those? Can folks write if you feel safe and comfortable, can you share the moments you're most proud of yourself?
Or a moment where you had this thing of like, wow, I never even knew I could do that. Like these moments of like kind of like extra human that come from a crisis or whatever, that you're like, that's me right there. Like that, for me, that's how I understand myself, is like how I show up in the world, how I apply myself. Then that's how I understand myself. And look, we like to get attached to identities to make sense of ourselves, right? Like I'm a coach and Abby's a therapist, and these are identities that we wear because they're useful for creating connection, right? Like, how to orient to us because we like can operate from this identity. I have lots of other ones, and I'm also usually very interested in the ones in letting my identity be as mutable as possible, which is challenging for the ego to do because the ego wants to be in stability and like sureness and a know-it-all, which I also love. I love being in a know-it-all egoic state where I can tell you exactly who I am. Like it can all be pretty fun, I think.
Yeah. I think though, that to your point, like what, the concept of who I am, I think is a hard one to perseverate on, right? So like I spent much of my 20s being like, who am I? And how do I express that? Right? And that really was a lot of wasted time. Thinking when what I am is what I do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that doesn't mean vocationally, right?
Yeah.
That's a role, or like, you know, what like these roles of being like, I'm a woman, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a partner, I'm a this, this is all made up. Those are just it's being like, this is a desk. And yes, it is, but they come in many different shapes and sizes. You just have like, right, this particular desk is this particular desk.
Yeah.
And I have these moments that the best way I can think of being like, who am I, is like when I feel really alive.
Yeah. Great.
Um, and I had that last night, taking Lois out for a pee,
Yeah.
looking around being like,
Yeah.
oh, this is so nice.
This is the stuff. This is the stuff.
This is the stuff. Yeah, learning, engage, right? It's all like living. It's all doing. Who I am is like doing something. Even when you're like, when I even think of that moment when I like really am like, I'm me. I'm really feeling physically in my body. I'm doing something. I'm not thinking or trying to figuring out who I am. I don't even know. I'm a person. I'm a human. I'm shrimp.
You are shrimp.
I'm shrimp.
You know,
And you are noodlefish.
Hamster Man did something interesting here. They said being proud of themselves feels odd. And then that they don't have permission to decide that. And I'd be very curious who does have the permission to decide that. Just food for thought there, buddy.
I may have some ideas.
Might be an external authority figure or something. I'm not sure.
Weird, right?
Yeah.
I mean, again, I think that's, when we look at dissociation or, the concept of a false self or a concept of all these different things, I do not have that. I am unilaterally.
Well,
how
does it feel to receive that projection, Gunny? How does it feel? You're the authority.
Yeah, sometimes people keep telling me that, and I keep going, well, that's odd.
It is a fun game, though. Like, one of the thing about the parts work is that, in my experience, once I figured out that I am actually the only adult in the room, and that I am responsible for my infant self and my 2-year-old self and my 4-year-old self, and I can no longer be pissed at my parents that I am now the parent for the child inside. Talk about an ego death. I was so upset that I could not outsource all of my blame to them anymore of like, you did this and you were crazy and you hurt me and you blah, blah, blah. Like, and look, all of it is legitimate. It's not to like gaslight myself out of any type of experience, but it is to get into the real reality that my adult self is in charge now.
Yep.
Like, I am the authority in this circus. Me.
Yep.
And, when you look around at a circus and you're like, wow, that's my circus. You're like, shit, I don't want to be the authority of this. We got some work to do. Got screaming babies in the corner. There's like kids drawing on the walls. I'm like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's really that, everybody says like you have to become who you needed as a child. Nobody's coming to save you, right? All of these different, right? The upshot of that is like, the buck stops here.
Yeah.
There's a saying in 12 Step where, which again can be very triggering and very, because again, a lot of what we're always working with too is being, like, I'm a failure. Yeah. And so like there's a shame around looking at the chaos of your life if it's been, parts of you have been outsourced or you didn't know that you had the power to take those parts back and take care of them. That you're like, oh my God, why didn't I what's wrong with me? It's like, it's okay. You learn and then you do better. But the saying is, there is a moment where someone goes from victim to volunteer.
Hallelujah.
And that talk about getting punched in the face
Yeah.
with a really meaningful truth, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Are,
um,
Gunny, do you know the drama triangle?
no, but will
Okay.
you educate me?
I will tell you about it. I think you'll like it. So picture a triangle that's pointed down. And
Like,
on the bottom, yep, like that. On the bottom point is the victim. On the point
mhm.
on one of your hands is the persecutor.
Oh
And
yes,
on the
and
other one is the savior.
yes,
So in any dramatic moment in life, almost guaranteed this is playing out. Someone's a victim, someone else, a victim of someone else's actions, words, or whatever, and comes in to try to save. Often the savior becomes the new persecutor because the savior starts yelling at the persecutor for victimizing the victim, and then they move in, and then the persecutor becomes the victim, and like it just is this magical soup that we create together.
cycle.
Now, picture a right side up triangle sitting on top of it. The victim goes to the creator,
Hmm.
and the persecutor goes to the challenger, and the savior goes to the coach. So, in this, you go from being like, if I am deep in a healing moment and I'm deep inside of a very real trauma, I may be feeling like a victim. And yet, if I can step into creator consciousness inside of that, I open up options.
Yes.
I no longer need someone to stop doing something to me to stop having the experience. I can just be like, oh, I can find my way through this. Or if someone comes to me with a victim story, and by victim story, I don't mean like an actual like victim. I mean the one of victim consciousness, when like someone can't get out of being a victim. Someone comes to you with that, and instead of saving them, you sit with them and you say, I hear you. What do we want? What do we want to do? Let's like, I'm not going to get in the hole with you.
You empower them. You say you can get out of the hole.
We're like, we can do it together, but like you're going to participate.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you, but it's you. It's your life.
Yeah. And the challenger, like we need challengers in life. The healthy, penetrating challenger energy is what creates change. But you don't have to hurt anybody while you're doing it.
Right.
It doesn't have to be at someone. So when you're talking about being a volunteer, I hear like victim moving to creator.
Well, I think part of it is it's sort of like, and this is such a complicated thing, right? For this community, my internal experience, right? We've inhabited many different spaces of or being a victim, truly a victim, right?
Yeah.
Which has everything to do with powerlessness and that not being validated.
Correct.
Right? So, it's like one of the ways I think about it in my own experience and the way that I would put it in terms of this sort of like idea of victim to volunteer is that I have a comfort with harm. Not because there's anything wrong with me or not because I'm a jerk or because I have a victim conscious. I mean, again, but it's part of like, I thought harm and love went together. I thought harm and my ability, my capacity to withstand it was a way of showing that I loved somebody, right? Like this is what I understood. And part of what, right, part of like what this negotiation is so often about when we move out of this idea of like what victim consciousness is, right? It's not about, I think, just to clarify, like what Mal's saying, it's not about sort of a choice. Like, it's not like you're painting yourself to be a victim. It's that in order to move out of it, you have to, one, see where you really are a victim and have been. And that, two, maybe you don't actually have to be harmed. Like you have a choice in that. Because that's part of when victim to volunteer, right? Like at some point I started having a choice about whether or not certain people could hurt me in the same way.
Yes.
I did not see that choice. I did not understand, again, whether I just didn't see it, I didn't make that choice, I didn't know. It doesn't, but that's where I kept doing the same thing.
We are only responsible to the level of our awareness.
Well, and
If
I
you're
think,
unaware of something, you can't be responsible for the choice.
so Lauren, yeah, and that's perfectly said. Lauren, so the way we're defining it is sort of like, think about it like a dissociated experience in a way, right? So like, it's not, it's not because I think one of the things like we've all had this one where it's like you're playing the victim, you're pretending to be the victim, you're playing the victim, and a lot of that was said to a lot of people in this community when they actually were victims as a
Yes.
gaslighting tool.
Yeah.
So that's not what we're talking about. It's like it's like an awakening to the reality that you do not have to live with harm,
Yes.
and that not all things are as dangerous as the things you've lived through, right? So I love the concept of the challenger. Like there are people who are going to push against you. They're going to trigger scary things in you, especially if you have been really scared in meaningful ways in the past.
Yeah.
The difference in sort of seeing that you have power is from looking at yourself as somebody without power, right? Which is a victimness. That victim consciousness is powerlessness versus somebody who has, you have the ability, you're free to choose, you're not free to choose all your choices, right? Like, but you have the freedom to choose. You have a different power that you did when you truly were victimized. And again, this is complex because it's like, well, what constitutes that? Well,
Very like we're in refined nuanced territory. Like
yeah, and it's situation
breathe deep
specific.
into this because we're in like the roots of things, kind of like where these things get kind of crossed. And it is so unfortunate that anyone ever mistakenly looks at somebody who's been truly victimized and accuses them of being in victim consciousness. I'm sorry that this happens. Like it's fucked up. And just like this nuance I love that you're bringing, Abby, is like, if someone, regardless of whether they have incurred harm or not in their life, is in victim consciousness, they believe they do not have a choice, and they buy into their own BS that they don't have a choice and life is being done to them. And this is people that haven't had big traumas live in this place for a long time, lifetimes. And I think there's a superpower of those who have had the experience of actual trauma and of actual victimhood to really understand this nuance. Like you guys get it more than most people will, I think, because you understand the truth of a moment of true actual powerlessness. And then in your healing process, as you acquire more tools, more years, more experiences, the hope is that you find more moments where you do feel like you do have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
That's the name of the game, is opening up. Oh, I have options. Oh, I can choose. As soon as you believe you have options and you can choose, you are not in victim consciousness anymore. You're in creator consciousness.
I like creator consciousness. Possibilities.
Yeah. Curiosity.
Yeah. Molly Strong, ladies and gentlemen. Molly Strong. Molly, you know shit.
I know some things.
No, you know a lot of things. You know a lot of things. You really do. I was thinking about, so Molly got on their healing journey a little bit faster than I did.
That is not true.
It is true. I was thinking
Not
about
a race, Abigail.
I'm not, there's nothing wrong with it. I was just highly dissociated.
I'm sorry.
And
You were our relationship was the beginning, I think, of both of our healing journeys.
I think it was in a very meaningful,
We were
yes,
each
I
other's
think
first safe relationship.
that's 100% true.
Like the healing started together.
We used to do this thing when I was really, really, so I always joke that this is actually a real thing, but like I have no problem being alone. I just like to know that if something terrible happens, there's someone to call.
Yeah.
And I used to say this to Mal, like I'm a little scared, and Mal would say, "My ringer's on," and that was
Count on.
the difference between being alone and not alone. Okay, so kind of deciding to step into our power rather than giving up to powerlessness forever. How do you combine the known ability to choose with the actual desire, motivation to choose? You don't have to want to choose. Just choose. This I used to say. This is like the dumbest thing that I'm ever going to say as a therapist. I was going to say on national television, but that's not what this is. On national television.
Yeah.
No. Stop thinking about it. A choice is an action. You don't need to choose. Just do something. Just do something, right? I got all mad. I got riled up where I was watching somebody talk about emotional regulation and it like made no sense. And I wanted to be like, excuse me, let me just clarify this for you. So you want to practice emotional regulation. It means you have a feeling and then you take an action you'll feel good about later to address that feeling. The end.
Yeah.
And if you get it wrong, then you try something else. Like that's where, right? Powerlessness is what if I get it wrong? Well, then you try something else.
Yeah. And this is where I also think like this is why we listen to people on TikTok and take classes and go to therapy. Like the reason why we do all this stuff is because we need to get optionality into our mentality when we're not triggered.
Yeah.
Like I gotta like have it when I'm not blacked out so that I can try to have it as close to real time when I'm struggling. So a friend of mine used to tell me, he's like, Molly, if you only have two options, you're in a crisis.
It's a really good way to put it.
And I was like, ooh. And he's like, so all you gotta do, if you feel like you're between a rock and a hard place, you're in a crisis. Like, I don't care what kind of situation you're in. Literally all you need to do in that moment is look for a third option. Even if it's a bad one that you don't want to take, just put it on the board and and then you're like, you find three options, then you find four, then you find five. Like all of a sudden you've opened Pandora's box and you're like, okay, like I've got a lot of options. I don't like 20 of them. 3 of them seem unfeasible, but these 2 actually, all right. All right. It's like the willingness to find the choice is the actual power move.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And you know, Hamsterman said something marvelous, which was like, don't you run out of try at some point? The answer is I don't. Like, I don't think there's like a tank of try. But what I would say is one of the options that I never allowed myself was to do nothing, to not respond.
This is an amazing option.
This is not an option because not responding, right? Doing nothing in a sense is sort of flee. It's the, right?
Yeah.
It's the first response of any healthy animal when faced with a threat is to move away. But if you, right, dissociators unite, that was not your experience, then you think you have to fight or freeze, like you have to do something, right? Or just collapse. And like you actually can just kind of be like,
I'm not doing anything.
no thanks for that. No thank you, right? Yeah. So in order to actually have the energy to fight when needed, right? Which I think is important. Like, where do I want to put my fight? Because fight is life affirming. Fight is, right? I have to walk away from fights that are ridiculous.
Totally. Also, humans are seasonal creatures. There's going to be moments in your life where you have a ton of energy to exert and to point at a something in your life, and there's going to be moments where you don't. Like
Yeah.
the winter, like there's a seasonality to our being that isn't even on an annual basis of like, wow, I'm and if you're a woman and you're working with your moon cycle, this is a whole, you know, this intimately. I think men have their own version of it. When you have a crap ton of energy for something and then all the energy kind of goes away, our culture fetishizes productivity so much that we punish ourselves down and when we're resting, and we forget that it's even an option. And it's like, it's a legit option to gather your energy. And if you're feeling like you don't got any try, then don't.
Yeah.
Like, take a moment in the not try and see if there's some excellent medicine there for you.
Totally. Totally. I think too, it's like try and care should go together. And one of the things that I think for a lot of, dissociators, um, like we didn't, part of why we dissociated because the stuff that we cared about wasn't important.
Yep.
It didn't matter if we cared about not being hurt. It didn't matter if we cared about, whatever, getting this thing or having this experience if it just wasn't going to happen. So you're not going to care about it. And part of learning about like how to appropriately is a weird, but like how to like in reality live your own life is about how to take action on things you care about. Not what you're supposed to care about, not what, this is like, and again, I'm not suggesting that you're like, I care about robbing banks, so therefore I will take that up. Right? Like, that's not it. I'm saying like, whatever role I think about when I became a mom or when I, became, I don't know, anytime I've ever been in a frick dipping hetero relationship and I've been like, I have to be the greatest partner. I have to just be so supportive. I have to be so loving and understanding all the time. I have to, and
eat cookies and mop the floor. Yeah.
I mean, I never did either of those things, but
me neither.
Well, I guess that's not true. I did clean some, but I was, like the other stuff, like had to be fun, and I'm so fun. I'm really not very fun. But right, that was a ton of effort, and if I'd just been able to put effort into the things I actually cared about, then that would have been a real relationship as opposed to what I was taught. And I think that's sort of like what we're playing with. Like, it's okay. Bye, Becca. We're with you. I don't even know what I'm saying. We just love you. We think you're terrific.
Totally. The other thing about, I like what you're saying of like, actually like the power, excuse me, stepping into your power and choosing to act on the things you care about. I'm choking over here.
Do you want to take it? Feel free to honor the reality of your body.
But I found in my own journey into stepping into my own power, there were moments right before I did it, right before I chose the power, that I didn't want to do it because it came with responsibility.
Or loss.
Well, I was more afraid of the responsibility part. I'm like, if I'm this powerful, then I have a lot of responsibility. Like Spider-Man talks about this. Like, with great power comes great responsibility.
It's true.
And it's fucking true. Like, it's a truth that like my adult self is still growing into. And I'm like, ay, wow. And then when I see a reflection of my power, I'm like, oh, crap. Okay. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to feel my borders. I'm like, oh my gosh. So then when you think about pointing that power at the things that you love, then wow. We got a cheers. Yeah, like when we apply that towards the thing that we love, it can be a very vulnerable, exposing process of offering our power to the thing that we care about.
Yeah.
This is vulnerability on display of like showing your bare heart with all of your beautiful power behind it.
Yes.
Like that, I mean, that's aliveness for me. It's also terrifying, but it is like aliveness.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think, I think about sort of like there's that quote, right? People are actually not afraid of their darkness, they're afraid of their light or something.
Marianne
Um,
Williamson, she nailed it, man.
who did that?
Marianne Williamson did.
It's facts.
It's facts.
And I think, I mean, I sort of think healing and the power is, and when I say like this idea of being like, I'm a person. Well, if you've gotten a lot of power by being able to make room for other people's personness, which is what dissociation really does.
Yeah.
Like it's really scary to be like, oh my God, I'm actually going to be me.
Yeah.
And I'm not invisible anymore. Like being invisible, it's part of the reason why I loved living in New York City. I loved it.
I loved this part too. I loved being the least interesting thing on the street.
The least interesting thing.
So fun.
The least interesting thing. Like living in New York was quite literally the safest I've ever felt in my entire life.
Same.
Because it's just a prison, invisible. And for, I mean, it's actually shocking that I'm on the TikTokies doing all of this stuff because
surprises.
God forbid I shared an opinion that nobody agreed with or wasn't right for most of my life. That's just.
I like where we are because it makes me think that like when I think about like what is healing, right? Like we talk about it a lot, we do it a lot, we like make efforts in this direction so much. But as we're talking, I'm like, healing is this like little spark inside that says, I'm gonna give myself a different experience. Somehow, some way, I'm gonna give myself a different experience.
Yes.
In little tiny drips, in big cosmic leaps, whatever. But like, I believe in my ability to create a different experience for myself. That is healing.
It is. And I also wanted to show you this, Molly.
Mine's in a box in Colorado. I know right where it is.
Molly's coming to us live from Panama.
Yeah.
Panama.
Yeah, Lenny, invisibility is fun until it's not, for sure. Like it,
Yeah.
There's definitely layers to that one.
It's really an interesting thing too, to be like, what degree of importance do I need to have to be real? And, folks, when you talk about sort of like different pathologies, like narcissistic pathology, right? It's like people have to be very important, very big, very important. But I also think like a lot of survivors of trauma have such an appreciation and such an understanding that like it just takes one person that you really want to be really, really important to and be chosen by or be right. Like, again, you don't need a lot. You just need one. And I think a lot of times what I want to encourage all of us is you're allowed to have more than one people's who you are important to.
Yeah.
Like in some ways that comes from being like, but I never even had that. So how could I? And it's like, you just, whatever is real is okay.
This is so important because I know in my experience with you, Abby, is you were the first one. Truly. And we had such a beautiful relationship inside of this like first place of feeling safe. And it was important for our relationship to find other people to feel safe with. Like it was critical for our connection that we both had more than each other inside of this. And there was like a sadness in that truth, and there was a freedom in that truth, and there were so many different things inside of it. But like, our relationship really set the tone for me to know what to look for in the other ones, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same. And for those of you who don't know, Molly and I went through well, this it's not really like we went through it, it's more like I committed a friendship breakup.
We went through it.
We did go through it, but to be clear, I do want, and I've said this
She dumped
separately,
me. She
but
dumped me temporarily, and then we found our way
it,
back together.
it really actually a marvelously dissociated and horrifying thing, but I knew Molly would see, and I couldn't let anybody see. So I believe I ended our relationship after, I think it was just the most ridiculous, and we've talked about this separately, but it was some, text message that our relationship is over, goodbye. And then Molly very kindly, because she is much smarter, because she knows what love is, and again, was the first person who I ever had somebody who she saw enough. She, every once in a while, would be like, hey, Abby, just thinking about you.
Still out here.
Yeah. And then that created enough safety that I could come back to reality and make amends to her. But I think part of, again, like the concept of what I understand safety to be, it comes from all parts of the journey of our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And that you don't have to be in total agreement or alignment in order to be loved and be safe.
No. And I'm learning about this with my current partner now, because we've been together for about 2 years, and the first year and a half, we're like glued together, right? Like we're just completely glued together. And in the last 6 months, we've been creating more space in our relationship for each of us to exist a little bit more fully inside of it. And my young parts feel this expansion as separation.
Mm-hmm.
And no, the honeymoon's not over for sure. Honeymoon's still full on, but there's like, my young part is like, oh no, we're separating, and my other parts are like, no, we're expanding our container to hold more.
My favorite line I ever said to you was, so Molly and I went to a friend's wedding. This was like right before I got pregnant, right before the whole thing shut down with COVID, blah, blah, blah. So their last hurrah. And Molly was deep in their healing journey. And the great line that gives you a sense of my reaction to, right, safety had to be alignment. It was only alignment. We were together, right? That Molly goes, I'm going to go paddleboarding. And I go, Molly, I feel like we're going through a breakup. And then I think you said, and then I went to sleep for like 12 hours. I was so upset. And Molly went paddleboarding, which was good.
So difficult for the young part.
And it's hard to know if safety, right? Because our understanding, what we learn safety is established in infancy, in childhood. If you had to be in alignment, and all children do to some degree, right? You have to be in alignment with your caregivers to get safety. Like, it's like, oh my God, you're the big deal.
And I learned as a young child that like proximity was safety, because I could manage my mother's experience from proximity. That was the way that I could be her emotional support animal. I couldn't do that with any kind of separation, and then separation was where it got dangerous. Mm-hmm. So just watching my own internal experience around a very healthy expression in my relationship, and just being like, oh, my young part is still in relationship with mommy right now, not my gorgeous, amazing partner. This is a mommy thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that is so, because I think for one of the things that I've come to realize is that aloneness is where I feel safest, which
Yeah.
if you saw, I mean, again, I was never could be alone, never could be alone, never, always with
Interesting.
people, always doing something, always,
Really?
um, and so like part of that had to do, I think, with again, sort of a confusion inside about the difference between fear and excitement. And it turns out being alone is an incredibly exciting experience for me.
I love
Like,
this.
you give me a day where I am entirely by myself and I am just, I mean, I
Elated.
have chills now. Like,
Uh-huh.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Um, but I thought that was fear. No, that
This
was,
is so good. I was working with this woman this last week, and she had this like my experience of her is that she had a simultaneous yes and no in her body at the same time. And we broke this down into like the move that she did to create safety completely overran her boundaries. She understood in her system the way to create safety was to overrun her boundaries.
yeah.
This in and of itself is a deeply unsafe act. So her way of creating safety was an unsafe act on her behalf. And this, when we landed on this, I was like, baby, I understand why you're confused.
It's confusing.
Because the way the child creates safety is a deeply unsafe act.
Mm-hmm.
Now you know what you're working with. And
Well, and I think that's right. It's like,
we all have
it's like,
versions of this too, where like the way we understand how to create connection is not actually accurate, or the way we understand how to create safety is unsafe for us. So just like finding those little leverage points and being like, oh, hey, okay, well, no wonder it's confusing because there's a no and a yes here at the same time.
yeah. Or is it my no or your yes, right? Or your yes or my no, right? Like, I think that's sort of, I mean, it's such a wild experience. And if you look at sort of, in spaces where dissociation is cultivated or these things, it's about quite literally confusing a child about what they know to be true. Like, and confusing fear and excitement, confusing good tastes and bad tastes, confusing sensations. And again, we do that, there's like a degree, obviously, but like when a kid falls down and they hurt and a parent goes, "You're okay," it's the it's the same thing, right? Like, it's
Yeah,
not, but it
that's
is.
really well
It's
said.
quite literally being like, "You're okay," and the kid's like, "But I'm not okay."
Yeah.
Right? And so this is where, when we're working with sort of like, everybody loves to be like, "Oh my God, what's bad and good?" And it's like, people, it's a spectrum. Everything's a spectrum.
Love our
You know?
duality, baby.
Yeah. It's like it's confusing to have the experience of growing in a world where a lot of what you're told that you experience is abnormal or not what other people are experiencing. And that's bullshit.
Or too much. Like this is the other thing that people get reflected is the too much, not enough, right? Like your emotions are too much, your expression is too much, or like you're not like this. And there are two sides of the same coin, right? Too much and not enough are the same
Yes.
wound.
Totally.
Same
You're not hitting the mark.
Yeah, you're not hitting the mark. You're either too much or not enough. Something else is too much and you're not enough, or you're too much and something else is not enough. And it's just this like, it's such a trap.
Yeah, exactly, Lenny. But that's the point. That's what I'm saying. Like, but did anybody say that that was not normal? No.
Yeah.
It felt abnormal, though, to be clear. It did.
Yeah.
And I think this is where, again, it's like Molly's spot on, right? This is like,
I had this moment. I uncovered a memory like 2 weeks ago and I hit like a number 11 trigger. Like just super deep. I was 4 years old again. Like real out of the blue. Like this is out of the blue. And I'm fucking sweating and using every tool I've got to move through this and really listen to this 4-year-old version of me. And I was so confused as to what to tell her in the moment because I couldn't undo the hurt that she had incurred. I couldn't go back. My adult self couldn't say, like, this didn't happen. I can't rewrite it. Like, her experience happened. And so I was talking to her and I was trying to find and ask her and feel from her what would help her rest. And the thing that she needed to hear more than anything was, you were right to feel exactly the way that you did. You knew it was wrong and you were correct to feel that it was off. Your sense of this was right. You know what you're talking about. You know what you're feeling about. And this little 4-year-old body was like, oh, like, can't undo the hurt, can't undo the harm, can't undo anything. But confirm her experience that she was right to feel like she knew it was wrong. She knew it wasn't correct. And I was just like, you're right, baby. I see what you see. And your sense of this was correct. A thing that no adult in her life was or could give her around this experience.
Mom.
Just, you're real. You nailed it, kiddo. Good job.
Yeah. That's like, when people talk about the ACEs study, which is this longitudinal study of adverse childhood experiences and how it impacts people's health, blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
It basically shows that, like, the medicine is, not preventing experiences. Like, again, like, yes, good to do, but it is a child. It's not what happens. It's who has a secure attachment. Well, a secure attachment is exactly that. It's not fixing, it's not solving, it's not changing. It's a secure attachment is, I see you. I am with you. I will not look away. I am right here. You make sense to me. I believe you. Right? That's a secure attachment.
Yeah.
And when we talk about what healing really is about, nobody can give us that.
Which is another pisser, I might add. Like, no one can give it to us but ourselves. It is, in my experience, one of the most beautiful and unfortunate truths of being a human that I know. Like, it just is.
Yeah. I mean, Lenny was visiting and helping me with something. And, I'm not used to, I have a funny relationship with actually being seen, as Molly knows. And there was something happening where Lenny looked at me and said, "Are you having the terrors?" And I was. Right?
How did you feel that she pointed at it?
I didn't like it. I mean, I liked it. I had a yes and a no. I had a full yes and a no, right? I was like, yes.
You see it and don't talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for seeing me. Let us not speak of this.
Excellent work, Lenny.
But then what Lenny did, right? What Lenny did, which was great, was like, okay, yep, they're real. What do you need to do? And I was like, I got to go walk around to Goodwill. And they were like, okay.
Excellent question. What do you need to do? So good.
So I did. And that helped. And that's, again, like, it's not, like, in some ways what we, when we have the connection, like, a secure attachment is not, I fix every problem that comes across your path. It's also, and I think about this, like, when you look at child development and you look at, helping kids build resilience and helping kids, grow up to be people who, are in the world, you have to give them, like, the ability to take care of themselves and believe that they can, that they are born with wisdom, they're born with, right? And if you don't go, yes, I believe you can figure this out, or you have agency, or you have then they.
Yeah. And this is a note for like all of the people with your inner child, is like the first rule for me is when she has an experience, I say you're right and good. The baby's screaming, you're right and good, baby. No, what are you screaming about? Like none of this like, oh no, it's not so bad. Like, like, you're right and good. From your experience, that's just an accurate thing.
Yeah.
I also really like what Herbal W is bringing about, like a caring person who's grounded in their nervous system can show us how. Like, I love this of how our nervous systems do learn from each other, and do like co-regulation is such a beautiful experience we can have with each other. And Abby, I think when we met, our nervous systems had like a meeting point in kind of how shredded they were. And also like we carried different medicine for each other. Like, I carried a medicine for you in my nervous system, you carried it for me, and I really learned a lot from, like, my nervous system learned a lot from being in connection with you in that time. Like, oh, that happened.
I do, and maybe this is but I think in part our wounds are different.
Yep.
Right? And what part, like, but it's almost maybe the wound isn't the right way to put it. What would be the way, like, the good stuff we got was different.
Mm-hmm.
And so we could offer that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Do you know what I mean? Like, I do think that was and is like such a huge part of what my body responded to you was I had pain in a place you didn't, and you had pain in a place I didn't.
Also, like, your pain was super palatable and easy for me to be with, and my pain was super palatable and easy for you to be with. Like, I was kind of like, okay, like,
I was like, yes.
We were casual with each other of like, yeah, sure, baby. And we're like, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. And you're just like, all right, my love. Like, so we also like, we in our like friendship alchemy, we didn't have like your triggered me.
Exactly.
We didn't have any of that.
100%.
Like, which I think is just like a good note for like when you're out there and you're sensing resonance with people. It's just like to know like, oh, like, their drama doesn't bring me anywhere. Just like,
there was never a competition. And that, I think, to be, you know what I mean? Like, we were never in competition about whose experience was more important, or more suffering, more real, or more, because like that, it was, we didn't need to. I just think it's like, I just like the world sometimes.
I feel that
and
way.
I think about, the bar that you and I met in. It's the same bar I met my husband in. And I have these two great kids. Like, again, there's just, life is really something.
This is the stuff.
Right? It's not all good and not all bad. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not all good and not all bad. That's not how it works. Molly, can I ask you, because this is what we have to get Molly to have 1,000 followers so that she can be seen.
So that you can see my face.
Because I need to see your face, and I need to ask you questions about your outfit, and I need to ask you what facial products you're wearing, because Molly and I also, you're going to talk deep healing, but
other fun things.
The like aesthetic is fun.
Yeah. I worked with this guy, and his work is like this week-long somatic healing container that's super epic. It's called the Dojo. And a guy came to him at the end of the container and said, I don't feel any better. And this man's response, he's a real Jedi. This man's response was, this is not meant to make you feel better. It's meant to make you feel more real. And this is the like, it's the paradox of the healing and all the work and all the thing. It's like we get into it and then we start feeling more, yeah, ugh. Ooh. Like it the feeling more real is the name of the game. And
Yes.
it's just sometimes it's a pisser, sometimes it's amazing, and sometimes it's both at the same time.
And I think it's also, I remember telling you this when we talked on your birthday after I just had my first kid. And I remember saying to you, because it really worked with my dissociation, that I felt like I'd been cracked open
Mm.
and I felt so squishy.
Squishy. Yeah.
Squishy and and I remember being
She
like,
didn't like feeling squishy, for the record.
No, but it was right. It was so like, I was like, so much pain and feeling. But it was beautiful. It was poignant. It was right. I remember you being very proud of me for being squishy.
I mean, it's probably one of the molting lobster. Yeah, man.
That's it.
It's like that.
Hamster.
Yeah.
That's it.
The softening after the armoring is the vulnerable move. It's also the one that happens when you're ready, like when the armor is no longer necessary. It's such a celebratory moment, and it feels so shitty sometimes, but it is like literally, if there was a gold star or like an achievement unlocked kind of vibe in the healing process, like the moment where softness is achieved is where it's at.
Yeah.
And it's very foreign to our systems that have lived armored or dissociated for many years. And then we get to cultivate the safety from the softness. And that's a whole other layer.
That, I feel like that's this place where, when we do this again, we should really talk about the safety of softness. Because I also like have this in my head, an armored system feels like should be my license plate. Like I've been an armored system.
Yeah.
But again, like that's not, it's such an interesting way to sort of think and move and pull apart what safety means.
Yeah.
And how safety in childhood and safety in adulthood and at various stages is going to be dynamic. It's going to change, and that there can be safety in softness.
Yeah. Yeah. Completely.
I would like this to be my safety and softness era.
Yes. Yeah.
My tour coming to Panama. I said to the People Mall, should there ever be a retreat?
Oh yeah.
I know a place.
I got the spot for you.
You do?
Yeah. Alaya. Mm-hmm.
We should, yeah.
Bye, Haley.
Bye, Haley. All right.
The safety thing, Gunny, I think the beautiful thing about it is like it's like the safety and armoring is just an out-of-date operating system. Honestly, it's like a software thing. I'm being reductionist and casual for the sake of impact, but like truly like the upgraded OS is the safety without the armor, and you're still actually safe. You're still actually safe. It's not you just feel like a vulnerable, exposed lobster without its thing. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm talking about safety from within, not including the external environment, Lenny, but thank you for that distinction.
Yeah. And also safety, like harm. I mean, I think harm, what I can perceive as harm is not always harmful. And it's easy to perceive it. And I mean that like in like, oh my God, right? Like that comes from being, I have an assault system ready to protect myself. But it goes back to like safety in softness being about, I don't need to respond to that. And a non-response is a non-validating act, right? Like it's again, like there's something about like rest, softness,
Yeah.
that I want to say relaxation, but I'm still a bit clueless about what that looks like.
You and me both.
That's okay. That's
You and
okay. Yeah, life is for living.
Before I could take a nap.
Yeah. All right, Louise. Ow.
Right, Thelma. How do we wrap this up?
Let's wrap this up, and then let's make sure we're going to do this again. So for those of you who want Molly's information, Molly, can you talk about your website?
Yes, you can follow me here on TikTok or on Instagram at the Molly Strong. MollyStrong.com is my website. Very easy to remember. I'm around. I'm easily locatable. And find me, ask me questions, whatever. I'm here.
Follow them so they can be a visual person on there.
Follow me so you can see my face someday. And
yeah.
Lilith, you're welcome. And I just send so many yummy, loving vibes to your sweetheart. Seriously, thank you for choosing to spend some of your time with us. Yeah, what about your website, Abby? You want to talk about your website?
You can find me at www.peoplemakesense.org.
Org.
Yeah, and
If we can't hype each other up, who can? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we got this community coming. It's coming. We've got coaching coming. We've got life coming. And I love you, Molly, and I love all you guys.
Wow, your people, Abby, over here are super epic. I'm so moved by all of your curiosity and your sharing and your humanness on brilliant display. Like, everybody just keep going. You're doing great. Just such a brilliant experience for me to be a part of this. I loved it.
We'll do it again, Mom.
We'll do it again.
Yeah. Well.
Okay.
All right. I love you all. I will see you on Thursday.
Ciao, everyone.
Ciao. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.